tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I'm overwhelmed because the day is finally here.
10 years later, the trial of the man charged in the Amanda Todd cyberbullying case gets underway.
Running over kids?
And a man accused in an alleged hit-and-run admission at an Indigenous march turns himself in.
I absolutely love it.
It's the latest and, for some, the greatest in electric micro-mobility. Why unicycles are suddenly taking Vancouver streets by storm.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. It's been 10 years since 15-year-old Amanda Todd died by suicide after sinking into depression. Now, the trial is finally starting for the Dutch man accused of harassment and extortion in the case. Renee Filipponi has more from Todd's mother, who has been waiting tirelessly for this day.
Hey guys, it's Amanda, and I'm going to be singing Someone Like You.
Amanda Todd was a teenager when she was harassed and extorted online. Now her mother is hoping for justice as the trial for the man accused gets underway.
I'm going to hear stuff related to my daughter, which will be hard. So I can't predict how I'm going to be.
Dutch citizen Aiden Coben pleaded not guilty to 5 charges against him for alleged extortion, criminal harassment, child luring, and child pornography. He was extradited from the Netherlands to Canada in December 2020 and has been in custody here since. The Crown says Coben is connected to multiple phony online accounts, and that for a period of more than 2 years, starting in November 2009, Todd received messages saying, "There is video of you flashing your tits." Those were followed up by demands that she perform sexual acts on webcam. "Once a week, we just do fun stuff on cam is all." And then messages saying, "Last chance, or I start sending the video to everyone in your Facebook, school, and newspapers in your city."
This case is about whether the Crown can prove who's behind the messages that were sent to Amanda Todd.
The defense says the Crown cannot prove that and want to make it clear Coben has not been charged in relation to Todd's death. The teen took her own life in 2012.
There's a lot of emotion wrapped up in these charges, and I know members of the public, they probably want blood, and they assume because my client is charged that he must be guilty.
This expert says it's unusual to see cases like this make it to court.
It's also extremely hard to find who the perpetrator is. If that perpetrator is anonymous, that perpetrator can hide behind all sorts of avatars.
The trial is expected to last for several weeks. The jury will hear from family and friends of Todd, police here in Canada, and investigators from the Netherlands who seized Coben's computer and personal devices. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, New Westminster.
The man arrested Friday in connection with the death of a Port Moody woman last year has been released from custody. 48-year-old Trina Hunt disappeared from her home. Her body was found 2 months later outside Hope. Over the weekend, neighbors identified the person taken into custody as Trina Hunt's husband, but police have not confirmed his identity. No charges have been laid against the person who was arrested and later released. Meanwhile, Surrey RCMP have arrested a 33-year-old woman accused of stabbing a customer inside the Guildford superstore. The attack happened on Thursday, and investigators don't believe the woman and her female victim knew each other. RCMP say the accused is also suspected in another stabbing over the weekend, this time at the Guildford Town Centre Walmart. In that case, the victim was transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. An Ontario judge has outlined bail conditions for BC musician Jacob Hoggard today, a day after the former Headley lead singer was found guilty in the sexual assault of an Ottawa woman. He was also found not guilty of other charges involving a teen fan. As Eli Glasner reports, Hoggard's lawyers say they'll be appealing the guilty verdict.
The latest development in the sexual assault trial that stretched over a month will see Jacob Hoggard returning home to Vancouver, where he'll be out on bail awaiting the sentencing for the sexual assault charge a jury convicted him of yesterday. After 6 days of deliberating, the jury returned a split decision, finding Hoggard guilty of sexual assault of one woman from Ottawa who was in her early 20s at the time, but acquitting him of sexual assault of a woman who was 16 at the time, and finding him also not guilty of sexual interference for an alleged groping incident of the same woman when she was 15. Hoggard will prepare for sentencing in Vancouver, where he'll be subject to a curfew and there will be random compliance checks. Sentencing is expected in August. The maximum penalty for sexual assault is 14 years. Sunday's result was the culmination of over 40 hours of deliberations by the jury. Defense and Crown painted two dramatically different pictures. Crown calling the former musician a violent sexual opportunist. Defense saying he was candid about his lifestyle and sexual preferences. The jury had many questions for the judge as they weighed their options.
Viewers probably have heard me bellyaching about how unusual it is that a jury is asking for a playback of everything, a redo of the trial that they just heard within a couple of weeks.
This defense lawyer was surprised the jury essentially listened to the trial a second time during deliberations.
Now, just for people to know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's kosher. They're allowed to ask for what they want, but usually it's a piece of evidence that they don't think they heard right, or they don't think they took down correctly, or something that one juror may be saying in the jury room, but another jury goes, that's not what they said.
Instead, the jury used their time to re-listen to the testimony of both accusers, ultimately deciding that what happened to the woman from Ottawa was sexual assault. In a statement released this afternoon, Hoggard said the case is far from over, while no word yet on whether the Crown plans to appeal. In the meantime, Hoggard is scheduled to appear in court to address a separate charge of sexual assault from a woman in Kirkland Lake on August 4th. Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
The driver involved in a hit and run at a residential school march in Mission this weekend has turned himself in. He hasn't been charged as police look for more evidence, but as Joel Ballard reports, people at the event are frustrated and want more urgent action.
This is the exact spot where 5 people were allegedly hit by what police call an impatient driver on Saturday. The group of adults, elders, and children was raising awareness about past traumas at St. Mary's Residential School, just up the hill from me.
He decided to put his truck into drive and ended up hitting me on my right-hand side here of my hip. It took me underneath the truck, and the tire had spat me out of the truck, and I rolled on the ground, and I was scared for my life that he would run me over while I was on the ground.
Troy went to the hospital and was diagnosed with a concussion and soft tissue damage to his hip. His lip, hands, and shoulder still hurt. Before driving through the crowd, Ingraldi says the driver yelled at the marchers.
It's upsetting, it's sickening, and it's heartbreaking. It's not heartbreaking for our people too, it's heartbreaking for the community.
After seeing coverage of the hit and run, a 77-year-old man has turned himself in. His truck has been seized, and the man was released without charges.
Making an arrest too soon can actually detriment the court process further down the road, so it's really important that we follow the letter of the law.
But people at the march say the investigation is taking too long.
If it were any of us, we would have been detained right away. There would have been more than one officer. There would have been charges. We would still be in cells right now.
And we are doing that absolutely without any bias and with the victims, in this case, with their best interest in mind.
We don't know the identity of the driver, but as for the victims, they're still grappling with what happened and hope that charges will be laid soon. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Mission.
Well, the first case of monkeypox in BC has been confirmed in Vancouver. The BC Centre for Disease Control says the risk of monkeypox to the general public is very low, and there is no need for the public to get vaccinated. Since May, more than 700 cases of monkeypox infections have been spreading through mainly Europe. Canada's first case was recorded in Quebec 3 weeks ago. The BC government says it will recognize the Tahltan First Nation title and rights within its own territory. That means the nation can make decisions on land management. The first of its kind agreement gives clarity to the Exay Creek Revitalization Project, which aims to restore an open-pit mining operation for gold and silver. Negotiations between BC and the Tahltan central government have been underway since June of 2021. The Tahltan government says mining and land development must not happen without Tahltan stewardship. NDP MLA Ginny Sims is expected to announce this week that her campaign will be ongoing for mayor of Surrey. CBC News has confirmed Sims' candidacy with multiple sources, learning the announcement will happen during an event on Wednesday. Sims has previously served as the head of the BCTF and as an NDP MP. In provincial politics, she was a cabinet minister until 2019 when she resigned from that position after allegations of misconduct. A special prosecutor later cleared her of any wrongdoing. The municipal election is October 15th. More Canadians than ever before are looking for help when it comes to putting food on the table. And according to a new survey, it's because of rising inflation and housing costs. Food Banks Canada says nearly a quarter of Canadians report eating less than they should, with many lower income and Indigenous people feeling the brunt of higher costs. 1 in 5 report going hungry at least once between March of 2020 and March of this year. That's roughly 7 million people. Here in BC, the Greater Vancouver Food Bank says it's also seen a spike in demand. Since July, it has registered nearly 6,000 new clients, compared with just over 4,700 for all of last year's fiscal. Well, human rights advocates are calling on the province to stop detaining asylum seekers in provincial jails. You may be surprised to hear that immigration refugee claimants are commonly incarcerated while they wait for a decision on their claim. As Christina Jung reports, some of those applicants say they've been left traumatized by the experience.
It's been 10 years since Sarah Lopez was arrested by Canada Border Services officers after fleeing Mexico to seek safety in BC. Still to this day, she says wearing the color green brings back memories of her time in jail. Memories, she says, give her nightmares.
I cannot wear green clothes or wearing jewelry in my wrists. That reminds me everything to the jail.
As a human rights activist, Lopez says her life was threatened while living in Mexico. She was waiting for her refugee claim to be approved in Canada when CBSA officers detained her.
In Canada, I never thought that this could happen again.
She spent 3 months in jail and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Mara Salanders with BC Civil Liberties Association says in the past 5 years, tens of thousands of refugees were detained in provincial jails, often being treated like criminals.
Down to the attire, down to solitary confinement, restricted access to loved ones, to legal counsel.
Now Lopez and Mara are working together to ensure other asylum seekers don't go through the same experience.
We're fighting for the termination of British Columbia's contract with CBSA. They are running this extremely rights abusive system of immigration detention.
On Tuesday, Lopez will share her experience with Vancouver City Council in the hopes that they will put pressure on BC to stop CBSA from placing future asylum seekers in jail.
It's one step in a whole long path to get some justice for migrants who come to the country.
A historic motion Lopez and Salanders hope will set precedents for other provinces. Christina Jung, CBC News, Burnaby.
Canceled just hours before kickoff. Why Team Canada soccer fans at BC Place were left hanging and what it has to do with the players' salaries. That's next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. Well, have you ever wondered what it would be like to scuba dive in a heavily polluted river? Okay, I can't say that I have, but now that I brought it up, I'm thinking about it for sure. The CBC's Mike Evans spoke with a diver who regularly dips into the Detroit River to see what's hidden down below.
I've been a diver since the early 90s, and early on I started getting in the river simply because it was one of the only places that you could do shore diving. So I've been a scuba diving instructor for 25 years now, teaching other people to dive. So diving in the river has still been something that is been a passion of mine. I'm one of the only people that does it.
And what are some of those interesting things that you've found over the last 25, 30 years?
The river used to be a dumping zone for everybody, so everybody used to throw their garbage in the river. So I've got a lot of bottles spanning from early 1800s all the way through till present. You can go down there and see every bottle known to man, so beer bottles and pop bottles from from the last 100 years are scattering all over the bottom. A couple of guns, pretty old ones, pump action 22 from the early part of the century. The other one is a sawed-off shotgun, Prohibition era type weapons. So it really is kind of a treasure hunting aspect.
Now tell me specifically about these cars that you recently saw and got some really great footage of right at the foot of Karen Avenue.
Yeah, so I was given a side scan sonar image. It takes a sonar image of the bottom. It showed a really clear image of a couple of vehicles, so we just wanted to get confirmation exactly what they were. The one is a 1940s sedan of some sort. I'm not a car guy. The other one, I thought the taillights looked like a Thunderbird, a late 50s Thunderbird. Totally encrusted in zebra mussels. There is a ton of zebra mussels down there. They pretty much cover everything. So a lot of times you bring a tool or a dive knife with you and you scrape stuff off if you actually want to see. Right beside those cars, there's actually two safes, two very large safes with the doors off of them. You got to wonder why somebody would be throwing old safes in the water.
Canada's national men's soccer team refused to take the field for a match against Panama in Vancouver yesterday. As Stephen D'Souza explains, the players and Soccer Canada are at odds over compensation after Canada's World Cup qualification.
Eustachio declare. This is the moment the country has waited for.
Back in March, the road to qualify for the World Cup came to an end. Canadian players were on a high, but off the pitch, the battle over compensation was just beginning. The dispute became public and ugly this weekend. Canada's game against Panama canceled, players sitting out, and fans left hanging.
We finally get to see some excitement for the beautiful game in our country, and this is what happens.
The men's national team blamed the Canadian Soccer Association for delaying talks. They asked for 40% of the bonus money Canada receives for qualifying for the World Cup. Canada Soccer said its proposal is in line with other countries.
I can't accept an offer that will put our organization in a financial position that is untenable.
Canada gets $10 million for qualifying for the Men's World Cup, and observers say that money is unlike anything the governing body has dealt with before.
If you boil it right down, the root of it comes to just a mistrust between the players and the CSA, and I think that stems from a lack of transparency over the years that the CSA has demonstrated.
He says the issue also highlights bigger challenges at Canada Soccer.
It is volunteers, and they have different agendas in different parts of the country. This is a complicated country to run anything, and when you have a lot of money coming into the situation, it becomes even more complicated.
Both sides appear to want to make sure the women's team gets an equal share of bonus money.
I honestly believe that we're suffering from not having been to the World Cup for 36 years.
Former player Bob Leonard-Juzzi says Canada needs to solve this issue because going to the Men's World Cup isn't going to be a novelty anymore.
We're going to the World Cup indefinitely from here on in. So let's try and establish something that, eliminates what we've just gone through.
The pressure to get a deal is on. Canada is scheduled to play an important match on Thursday. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
A new way to address wild weather in the province. After the break, a look at how BC is trying to improve its communication after last summer's deadly heat dome.
Striking truckers are blocking 4 border crossings in British Columbia. They're allowing cars across the American border, but they're stopping all trucks except those carrying mail and emergency supplies. The driver owners want an increase in fees. Ian Hannah-Mansing reports.
The blockades began at border crossings near Vancouver at about 9 o'clock last night. These truck drivers who own their own rigs have been off the job for 5 days, trying to put pressure on companies to pay them more. But this blockade stopped all truckers, not just the independents, and that led to some hot exchanges.
You're stopping somebody from doing their job! Hey, shut your fucking mouth!
By morning, some border crossings were choked with dozens of rigs. The drivers of these trucks, loaded with food, just had to sit and wait.
It's been horrible, to tell you the truth. I want to go home. I want to have a shower.
That's frustrating, but what can you do? I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it.
But by mid-afternoon, the RCMP asked the truckers to clear the road.
I have to move and open that highway, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
And I'm telling you that we are not going to be held responsible for the consequences of the actions of the people that are here if you go and do that.
Eventually, some trucks did move, but even though police said the blockade was illegal, they allowed it to continue. And the skirmishes continued as well. When a trucker tried to barge through the blockade, the result was predictable. Despite the tensions, the police are content for now to just keep an eye on things, but they may be forced to intervene. Some companies, which have supplies tied up in the blockade, are considering getting a court order to force the police to get the trucks moving again. Ian Hannah-Mansing, CBC News at the Pacific Highway border crossing in British Columbia.
Hi, I'm Anita Bathe, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver is a proud returning media partner of the Talking Stick Festival, June 12th to July 3rd. Enjoy and explore Indigenous culture through art, dance, theater, film, and more. Get tickets at fullcircle.ca and celebrate summer with Corleone at Pop Capella on June 25th. Come and enjoy high-impact harmonies and your favorite hits by pop legends. Learn more at corleone.org.
Lawn maintenance comes with plenty of free food at a park in Regina. Take a look.
Goats are really good at this because sheep tend to eat grass first, while goats like to nibble on weeds.
60 goats are on the job at the Goose Island Overlook. The hungry visitors will play an important role in protecting the park's ecosystem. On average, the goats eat about 1/4 of a hectare of grass and weeds each day. The goats will be on the hill for the next several days and will return again for another 10 days later in the summer. Okay, speaking of summer, but a little more serious, after last summer's deadly heat wave here in British Columbia, a new tool to help alert us when temperatures rise. It's that BC Heat Alert Response System, similar to Amber Alerts. Joe, can you talk to us about whether this is going to be effective? Because I know you've done some discussions around this, preparing.
Yes. That's right, Anita. I think this tool is really to help get the message of an upcoming heat wave to more people. This isn't so much about mitigating and adapting to heat waves, it's about communicating. And I want to take you back to pictures from last summer's heat dome where almost 600 people died of extreme temperatures. This is what the BC government is calling the BC HAR, the BC Heat Alert Response System. It's a two-step system. The first is a regular heat warning that we will get, as we usually do for regular heat events, but anything where we're talking temperatures over 31 degrees, those are the dangerous levels for our most vulnerable. That's when an extreme heat emergency will be issued. And that's where the broadcast intrusion system, the alert ready system, we did see some criticism around the heat dome and the flood events that was not used. This will be implemented. And again, it's really about getting the message out to the most people, really hearing from government officials today that it's about making a plan now, but where your cooling centers are, how you'll get there, and who the most vulnerable in your community are. So we'll be watching that closely. Switching gears completely, because I think part of the reason it was so important to get this message out now is that it has been cool and wet. And you're seeing pictures from along the Skeena River near Terrace, where evacuation orders are in place for 3 small communities after this weekend's rain. And that followed massive melting of our incredibly high snowpack for this time of the year. I want to take you to the flood watches in place. Anyone under that orange, that's the flood watch. That's where communities are either under an evacuation alert or order, or communities should be watching the forecast and officials closely because the rivers are close to flood stage. Still looking at high stream advisories for another huge swath of northern and southern BC, again, all in response to last weekend's rainfall. And we're watching for a next big rainfall event. I do just want to take you through this forecast closely. I know we were dry today, dry tomorrow for most of the province. Tomorrow evening, a small rain event comes in. This is the one we're watching for the end of the week. It is an atmospheric river. Want to really hone in on those details over the next couple of days. That'll be between Thursday and Saturday that we will see substantial rain. At this point on the south coast, looking at 30 to 40 millimeters, Anita. So I will, again, really lock in those details the next couple of days. Tomorrow, we get one more break, sunny and mild for most of BC, actually.
Okay, well, we'll enjoy that while it lasts. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's the newest thing in electric micro-mobility, and it's taking Vancouver streets by storm. As Karen Larson tells us, it's not a bike, it's not a skateboard, and it's not an e-scooter.
Anyone who uses Vancouver's bicycle routes knows this to be true. Personal electric vehicles are exploding in popularity. There's e-bikes, e-skateboards, e-scooters, and whatever the heck this thing is. It is an electric unicycle, also known as an EUC or one wheel. And it, according to devotees, is the simplest and cheapest way to get where you want to go.
It's a briefcase that can take you hundreds of kilometers on just a few cents. It's super fun.
Tom Bramble started his electric unicycle business in 2016 after stumbling on the technology while trying to solve a very Vancouver problem.
Was worried about buying a bicycle and it being stolen after being chained to a lamppost or the parts of it going missing. So I started exploring options and came across electric unicycles, and I couldn't believe that nobody else was selling them.
Bramble's gone from selling 15 units in year one to several hundred annually. He used to be an anomaly on Vancouver streets, but not anymore.
When I was first riding around, it was like walking around with a new puppy. It's not so much now.
At age 73, Tony Davies is an early adopter.
I absolutely love it. Love it.
He bought his first EUC 6 years ago, and last fall Davies put his wheel to the test, riding 110 kilometers up the Sea to Sky Highway to Whistler, but it's not a trip he recommends.
About halfway I thought, this is really dumb. That was the scary part, is the cars would just get so close to you. And you got those corrugated things that warn drivers to go in the bike lane, but they extend it into the bike path. So you're riding this and you're going,
EUCs are not street legal, but are being allowed on Vancouver bike routes under an electric vehicle pilot program. There is a learning curve, however, for new riders.
I would say most people can learn to ride within 2 hours, at most half a day. It does feel very precarious at first, but it gets a lot easier.
Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Okay, I can't even balance on an e-scooter. Not sure how it would balance on one of those things, but I've definitely seen them on our streets lately. You will not catch me on one for sure. Okay, that's it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for watching CBC Vancouver News. Have a wonderful evening.